This is Radio Sabah calling from Jesutu, North Borneo.
As Kadazan, I'm proud to be part of the largest ethnic indigenous group in Sabah, Malaysia or Borneo. It is my moral obligation to share with you the history and the origin and the legacy of our people so that our new generation can understand that our identity is known by God, given by God. We thank God for this time and season. Today I would want to continue my historical observations and my dissertations on the people of Sabah, mainly my people, the Kadazan people of Sabah. Now, what the Kadazan community has accorded, has given in a part of the formations of the Federation of Malaysia in 1963. I believe those younger generations have not really known the fact and truth about history. What I am about to reveal to you is based from fact finding, my personal research about the history of our people. Let me begin with the island of Borneo. Now, the island of Borneo is the third largest island in the world, which consists of Sabah, Sarawak, Brunei, and also Kalimantan of Indonesia. This is how it exists in Southeast Asia. Now, in the 50s and 40s, but then there is a plan by Malaya at that time, which is the Peninsular Malaysia, under the leadership of the late Tunku Abdul Rahman. He has a plan to form a new nation, a new federation, because not only North Borneo, Sarawak, and even Brunei, and including the Peninsular Malaysia or Malaya at that time, they were all had an influence from the British. And the North Borneo and the British, even the influence in Peninsular Malaysia, which is Semenanjung. When Tunku Abdul Rahman saw this chance, he has in mind to have an independent state from the Malayan Union colonizations, and thus he came with a plan that we want to gain independence from the British. Tunku Abdul Rahman, the late Tunku Abdul Rahman, we call him the father of nations, the first prime minister of Malaya and Malaysia. And to do that, he has a plan to join in minimum 5 existing provinces or country, which is the Malaya or Semenanjung Malaysia, and then we have Brunei, we have Singapore, and we have North Borneo, which is Sabah, and also Sarawak. So he concluded and he planned to have all these 5 wilayah, we call it, or provinces, or country, to come together to have a mutual understanding and agreement to gain independence from the British, because all these 5 provinces or wilayah or country by then was all under the influence of the British. And so some part of the Malaya states was under Siam, Thailand, which is on the north, and even then it was under the British colony. So Tunku and the sultans of Malaya planned to have a new state or country which is called Malaysia, and by influence and by his intelligence he was able to propose this new federation called the Federation of Malaysia. Way back before even 1963, he had this plan. Initially, his plan was not including North Borneo, which is Sabah and Sarawak. He was only planning to have the states, all the states in Malaya, and then with Brunei, and then with Singapore.
All the major buildings in Kuala Lumpur have been given a facelift before the celebrations marking the independence of the Federation of Malaya. It'll be proclaimed on August the 31st in this magnificent new stadium. Parades and sporting events are to follow the formal ceremonies, which will spotlight Malaya as the world's newest independent country. The residency is but one symbol of an era that has now passed into history. Sir Donald McGillivray, last of the British High Commissioners, arrives at King's House to sign the new agreement. He is accompanied by His Highness Tuanku Abdul Rahman, the newly elected first paramount ruler. In his address, Sir Donald said, "The time has come for a break in the old relationship between Britain and the Malay states. Henceforth, the two countries will march together as partners within the Commonwealth." In signing the independence, the old ties originating in the reign of Queen Victoria are severed. But new ties replace them, the bonds of sentiment and mutual trust which already exist between the British Crown and the rulers and people of the Federation of Malaya.
Tunku Abdul Rahman expand and offer this good offer to become independent from the British through the formations of the Federation. And that is why a very important document called the Malaysia Agreement, Malaysia Agreement of 1963 was formed. It was mutually agreed between Singapore, Brunei, Sabah, which is North Borneo, Sarawak, and Malaya. So that was the plan. So they and Tunku Abdul Rahman and the sultans was able to achieve their purpose and goal to negotiate with the British and with the Siam or Thailand king to bring back part of the country, part of the land, which is Kedah and the north part, Kedah, especially Kedah, to be annexed back, to be given back by the Thailand country, which is Siam at the time, or Siam. So the British arranged, and Kedah, Kelantan become part of Malaya, Peninsula Malaya. It was given by the Thai authority, because this state was also under the influence of the British. All right. And so once they have achieved that, then Tunku Abdul Rahman, with the endorsement of the sultans, draw a plan to gain independence, because Tunku Abdul Rahman is somebody that know the culture, and he studied in UK. Tunku Abdul Rahman, the late Tunku Abdul Rahman, studied in UK, so he got a lot of friends. So he drew a plan to form a new federation, a new country. And that include, like I said, Malaya, Singapore, Brunei, Sabah, which is North Borneo, and Sarawak.
Sambutan tiba serta-merta. Ahli-ahli mesyuarat dari kelima-lima wilayah itu melapaskan kesanggupannya atas gagasan Malaysia itu. Persetujuan ini adalah satu keagungan dalam persidangan pertama Jawatan Kuasa Perunding Sejakawan Malaysia di Jesselton pada bulan Ogos tahun itu.
Discussions are intense and many issues are debated. Ultimately, it comes down to one question.
Now, those who oppose at that time was the Philippines, who was still claiming that the North Borneo was leased to the British through the Sultanate of Sulu, and there are so many, including the Brunei. And then even Indonesia. This is what of the black history called confrontations.
After Indonesia finally gained its independence from the Dutch, they passionately supported the independence of Malaysia. The British had had a large and important colony in what is now Malaysia and Singapore, and they had relatively small colonies in Sarawak, Brunei, and Sabah. The year is 1957, and the British agreed to oversee the formation of Malaysia as an independent country. This, in their view, should include all their former colonies. But the president of the newly formed Indonesia protested. He saw those lands as territory of the greater Indonesia, and he was willing to put up a fight. This is the confrontasi with hindsight.
Because Kalimantan, which is part of the Borneo Island, which is the neighborhood of North Borneo and Sarawak, was part of Indonesia, and also they want to expand their influence even to North Borneo, to Sabah, and to Sarawak, because Kalimantan was just the border of this country. With this kind of attempt, the insecurity was there, and there was a tension that Indonesia was almost in confrontation, like internal war between the Malaya, because of this issue of annexing the existing colony of the British. But Tunku Abdul Rahman was given that kind of charisma and grace, which I believe that is the way it is, was able to talk nicely, compromise with the officer and with the governors. He went to London many times and proposed that he wanted an independent country to be formed, which is the Federation of Malaysia. And during that discussion, there is a lot of activities that went on. Like the British wanted to know whether the vast majority of the people of North Borneo, which is Sabah or Sarawak, agree to it. And does Singapore agree to it? And Brunei agree to it or not? Some of the nationalists in Brunei was against it. But the rulers of Brunei, the Sultan of Brunei, has agreed that concept to become independent from the British. The same thing with Singapore. And this new political leader called the late Lee Kuan Yew, he was approached by Tunku Abdul Rahman as the first Prime Minister of Malaya.
rakan saya Encik Lee Kuan Yew bagi sepatah dua cakapan kepada tuan-tuan. Sudah 100 lebih tahun Singapura menjadi satu pusat perniagaan dalam Asia Tenggara. Dan 1,600,000 lebih orang di Singapura adalah kebolehan keusahaan yang boleh menolong negeri kita menjadi satu negeri yang lebih bahagia. Itulah maksud Persekutuan Malaysia. Bukan sebagai Radio Moskow cakap ini apa penjajahan yang baru. Kalau bukan kaki tangannya kuasai negeri, dia kata itu penjajahan baru. Tapi kalau kaki tangannya sendiri, dia kata itu bagus, itu kemerdekaan yang bebas, dia kata. Merdeka Malaysia! Bersemangat sikit tuan-tuan. Kalau lemah begini, tak dapat merdeka Malaysia. Merdeka Malaysia!
And when the idea was given to Lee Kuan Yew, he was very positive in this formation. That, well, we want to gain independence from the British. We want to have a self-government, a democratic elected government. We want to have our own, governorship. Tengku Abdul Rahman saw the North Borneo, Sabah and Sarawak, and when Lee Kuan Yew agreed to be part of the formation of Malaysia, Tengku Abdul Rahman spoke to Mr. Lee Kuan Yew to be the representative of Malaya to meet up with the leaders of Sarawak, the leaders of Sabah or North Borneo at that time, on this plan to form an agreement to become independent through this new nation called Malaysia. And so, this is where we are. What is a function? Where does the Kadazan stand? Well, in Sabah at that time, the biggest tribe and the most influential leaders, indigenous people, were the people called Kadazan. The Kadazan people, especially in the area of the East Coast, which is along the Penampang, Putatan, Papar, and Kinarut area. That is where the Kadazan, which is mainly the Tanga tribe, resides. And most of them interbreed with the Chinese, and they become very successful and knowledgeable, and to some extent, a lot of them study in UK. And so, compared to the interior, Sabah consists of over 40 ethnics in Sabah. The same thing with Sarawak, the Dayaks and other ethnics. They are the orang asli, they are the indigenous people. But in Sabah, as I studied and I remember, there are also a group of leaders, and especially the major association and society, those who are capable, intelligent, educated Kadazan leaders have come out with a formation of a unity, a society, association. Thus, the first ever Kadazan association was called the Society of Kadazan in Penampang. The Society of Kadazan is an association that was inspired by the leaders to see the progress of the people, to be a voice to the North Borneo British colony, to be a voice for the Kadazan, to speak on the needs and the progress of the people. Back then, there are many Kadazans who spread out all over North Borneo, began to join in as a member and as a leader of the Society of Kadazan, which is today we call it KDCA, or KCA. From the Society of Kadazan in Penampang, it transformed into another association called the KCA, Kadazan Cultural Associations. That is where from that, KDCA was formed, from KCA to Kadazan Dusun Cultural Associations. Now, even then there are many other associations, but just minor, like USDA, United Sabah Dusun Associations, and even other tribe, even the Rungus Association and the Muruts. But they came after that. But in the pre-Malaysia formation, the Society of Kadazan represent the biggest Kadazan representation in Sabah. They are like the main voice of the people of Borneo at that time. And Tunku Abdul Rahman have that in mind, that he sent Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, the President of Singapore, to speak to this society. And so happened, the new president of the Society of Kadazan then was the late Donald Stephen, a mixed English-New Zealander Kadazan stock. The mother is a Kadazan from Papar, if I'm not mistaken, whereby his father's side was English, Australian and New Zealand mixed. So, Donald Stephen grew up in Kudat, educated under the British colony. He studied English. He speaks mostly English. And as a matter of fact, he grew with a good friend of him in Kudat, which is the late Tun Datu Mustafa. I think everybody know them. Yeah? And they grew together. They went to school. They were in Sandakan. And then he grew out to be a very intelligent English-speaking person. And he found a newspaper called Sabah Times. And he became the chief editor, which voiced most of his desire of a good Kadazan. And when the Society of Kadazan in Penampang saw this leadership, that is an intelligent man, so they took him in, not only as a member, but eventually became one of the chairmen. He became the president of Society of Kadazan. All right? But then when Lee Kuan Yew came to North Borneo, he saw that the Society of Kadazan is considered the main association that can bring voice to represent the people of Sabah. And so Lee Kuan Yew approached Donald Stephen and proposed the plan of Tunku Abdul Rahman. Hey, why don't we talk to the British to gain independence? And the way to do is that these states have agreed. Singapore has agreed, Brunei Sultan has agreed, Sarawak has agreed, and Malaya, which is represented by Tunku Abdul Rahman, has agreed.
Lapangan terbang Paya Lebar terhias ria untuk satu sambutan bersejarah. Inilah harinya para Perdana Menteri Tanah Melayu dan Singapura kembali dari London dengan Malaysia di genggaman tangan. Selepas 140 tahun terjajah, penduduk Singapura kini diambang pintu merdeka melalui jalan percantuman dengan Melaya dan juga sebagai rakan di negara Malaysia. Jauh sebelum jadualnya, orang ramai telah pun membanjiri lapangan terbang itu. Pada malamnya, bilangan memuncak sampai 50,000 umat manusia bersedia memberi alu-aluan gairah, satu alu-aluan penuh bangga dan riang. Dengan sambutan sorak gegak gempita, Tengku Abdul Rahman dan Tuan Lee Kuan Yew keluar dari kapal terbang. Inilah ketika gembira bagi rakyat. Inilah masa kemuliaan bagi mereka. Di antara yang pertama sekali menyambut Tengku ialah anak-anaknya. Tidak syak lagi Perdana Menteri kita berasa riang setelah selamat kembali. Perundingan di London itu sungguh memakan banyak masa, rumit dan sukar. Pada satu ketika, muncul kebuntuan yang mengancamkan. Dipandang dari segi ini, persetujuan Malaysia itu sesungguhnya satu kemenangan pribadi Tengku. Kejujurannya dan kebijaksanaannya lah yang membuka jalan kemenangan. Dia kembali membawa hadiah terbesar sejak merdeka bagi Melaya. Satu kejayaan lagi dalam hidupnya. Ketua penaja negara baru itu serta rakan seperjuangannya dikalungi oleh penyokong-penyokongnya. Tengku dimahkotakan dengan songkok berayat emas, Hidup Malaysia, dan ini disusul dengan cara asli sambutan orang Malaysia.
So they have a discussion. Initially, there was positive. There was no response because Donald Stephen thought about the importance of how Sabah can gain autonomy, self-government, and through the influence of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, they brought the leaders from Sarawak, leaders from Brunei, leaders from Sabah to travel to Malaya and show them how they have developed much. And Tun Fuad, Donald Stephen came to the conclusion that, yeah, it is a good idea to gain independence from the British. And so they all agreed and they formed an agreement called the Malaysian Agreement 1963, MA1963. They all agreed. Donald Stephen even became the chairman under the partnership of Tunku Abdul Rahman to have a session, a series with the leaders.
Pada bulan Disember 1961, Jawatan Kuasa Perunding Setiakawan bersidang kedua kalinya di Kuching. Di bawah pengurusinya, Tuan Donald Stephens dari Sabah, Jawatan Kuasa itu meneruskan kerjanya. Wakil-wakil melaporkan kemajuan-kemajuan yang tercapai dan menerangkan gagasan Malaysia itu kepada orang ramai. Dengan cara berdalih-dalih, mereka sekalian menerima dan menyokong rancangan Malaysia itu. Sementara berjalan segala kerja, sedikit demi sedikit Malaysia tergambar sebagai satu negara muda, lagi cergas, bakal dilahirkan. Perbincangan secara terus terang menyentuh perkara-perkara mengenai perlembagaan, iktisad dan siasah negara baru itu. Dengan itu, segala kabus wasangka dapat dihapuskan dari fikiran wakil-wakil wilayah Borneo itu. Dalam negara Malaysia, bumi putera akan mendapat tempat khas sebagaimana orang Melayu di persekutuan sekarang. Kebebasan agama dijunjung, hak-hak kaum lain juga akan dihormati. Demokrasi mendukung suara ramai. Dalam satu rapat raksasa di Kuching, maksud tujuan Malaysia itu diterangkan. Sambutan meriah penduduk wilayah Borneo itu sungguh menggalakkan. Ahli-ahli jawatan kuasa setiakawan itu berjaya dalam tugasnya memberi penerangan. Januari 1962, Kuala Lumpur kini jadi tempat persidangan yang ketiga. Membuka persidangan, Tengku melafazkan yakinnya bahawa Malaysia akan mengatasi beberapa masalah dalam negeri-negeri yang berkenaan. sekalian negeri di Malaysia itu akan dapat hak dan taraf yang sama. Tapi Singapura pula akan menguruskan sendiri soal buruh dan pelajarannya. Di penghujungan persidangan, satu rapat umum diadakan di mana pemimpin dan ahli perwakilan menerangkan gagasan Malaysia kepada orang Melaya. Di ketiga-tiga persidangan dahulu, jawatan kuasa itu telah pun melenyapkan segala syak dan waham. Persetujuan telah pun tercapai atas beberapa perkara mengenai percantuman. Tetapi ada lagi beberapa masalah yang perlu diatasi. Pada 3 Februari 1962, jawatan kuasa itu berjaya mengadakan rangka kerja untuk menubuhkan Malaysia. Kemudian menandatangani memorandum 44 perkara itu. Di dalamnya termaktublah jaminan-jaminan hak yang dikehendaki oleh wilayah Borneo. Sejarah akan mengabadikan jasa cemerlang orang-orang ini yang telah memberi rakyat satu harapan besar negara baru yang luas. Kini atas penduduk Borneo lah mengambil keputusan.
Now you must know, Donald Stephen is the president, the chairman of the Society of Kadazan. He represents the people of Sabah. And you know the history after that. He became the Yang di-Pertuan Negara, the first governor, replacing the former governor of the British. And eventually in the politics, he became the chief minister or the head of the state. But during that time, when they went to London, they discussed about it. The British government sent cobalt, we call it cobalt reports, to listen, to hear, and I don't know how strong it is, how influential it is, but the majority of the Kadazan under the Society of Kadazan agreed to their president, which is Donald Stephen, of the idea of becoming independent, self-government.
Suruhanjaya Kabul yang memulakan kerjanya dalam bulan Februari 1962 menarik minat ke 55 wilayah. Maksud tugasnya ialah untuk menentukan pendapat orang-orang Sabah dan Sarawak terhadap pembentukan Malaysia itu dan membuat syur-syur yang sewajarnya. Suruhanjaya itu adalah hasil perundingan di antara Perdana Menteri British dan Melaya dalam bulan November 1961 yang bersetuju akan tertubuhnya Malaysia. Diketuai oleh Lord Kabul, bekas Governor Bank England. Suruhanjaya itu mengandungi Sir Anthony Abel dan Sir David Waterston, dilantik oleh kerajaan British. Dan Datuk Wong Pauni dan Encik Muhammad Ghazali bin Syafi'i lantikkan kerajaan persekutuan. Kerelaan orang ramai tampil memberi pandangannya adalah satu-satunya sungguh memuaskan. Sebagai menyambut seruan Suruhanjaya itu, lebih 4,000 orang datang menyuarakan pendapatnya, selain daripada lebih 2,200 surat yang diterima.
And they said that this is the opportunity. Look, we have the Philippines, we have the Brunei, we have the Indonesia. Is trying to annex us, trying to bring us to become part of the country. And this is the opportunity for us, under the agreement and protection of the British, to be transferred from their power, from the colony, to become independent under the Federation of Malaysia. And it is a good idea. And Donald Stephen began to use the platform of the Society of Kadazan to inform the people about this new agreement called Malaysia Agreement to be a new nation, to get independent. And the Society of Kadazan trusted this man. He was then called the Huguan Sio, the paramount leader of the Kadazan. Whereas many of the leaders from the different tribe, the Dusun tribe in Tambunan, disagree. One of the Dusun leaders disagree with this formation of Malaysia. They even report to the United Nations then that it's better for them to gain independence directly from the British. But the Kadazan Society under the leadership of the Huguan CEO Donald Stephen, have a strong voice to agree. And the society, the association, began to accept this. And it was taken by Tunku Abdul Rahman and Lee Kuan Yew and the British government as the very sole voice of Sabah. That when the Society of Kadazan and Donald Stephen say, yes, we agree to form this federation, we want to become the partner of this federation. So you can now understand. And this is a fact. Anyone can challenge me on that. This is a fact. It was the Society of Kadazan of Penampang Sabah under the leadership of Donald Stephen or Tun Fuad Stephen when he became a Muslim that was accepted as a voice to represent the people of North Borneo that the majority want an independent.
Jalan untuk tertubuhnya negara baru Malaysia itu sudahlah terbentang dengan jelasnya. Dan insya-Allah dengan izin Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala pada 31 hari bulan Ogos 63 kelak negara baru itu akan muncul sebagai sebuah negara yang merdeka, berdaulat, yang akan mengambil tempatnya dengan megah di bangsa-bangsa bersatu. Inilah yang dikehendaki satu teladan. Karena dunia pada waktu ini bergaduh berbagai-bagai, bergaduh kerana kelas orang ni lain, bergaduh kerana bangsa orang ni lain, bergaduh kerana bahasa orang ini lain, bergaduh kerana agama orang ini lain. Tapi bagi pihak kita, kita boleh hidup dengan baik, dengan manis muka, dengan perasaan kasih mesra antara satu dengan lain, tidak terkira apa bangsa, apa agama, apa muka, apa kulit, biarkan hijau, kuning, putih, hitam, apa pun kita tak kira, asal kita boleh duduk sama sekali sebagai satu bangsa. Hidup Malaysia! Hidup Malaysia! Merdeka Malaysia! Merdeka Malaysia! Saya minta rakan saya Encik Lee Kuan Yew bagi sepatah doa cakapan kepada tuan-tuan. Itulah tuan-tuan ingat nak dengar pulangnya.
Tuan Lee Kuan Yew menerangkan peranan Singapura berkata,
tapi biarlah saya cakap, sudah 100 lebih tahun Singapura menjadi satu pusat perniagaan dalam Asia Tenggara. Dan 1.600.000 lebih orang di Singapura adalah kebolehan, keusahaan yang boleh menolong negeri kita menjadi satu negeri yang lebih bahagia. Itulah maksud Persekutuan Malaysia. Bukan sebagai Radio Moskow cakap ini apa penjajahan yang baru. Kalau bukan kaki tangannya kuasai negeri, dia kata itu penjajahan baru. Tapi kalau kaki tangannya sendiri, dia kata itu bagus, itu kemerdekaan yang bebas, dia kata. Akhirnya, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, marilah kita sambut cogan kata atau salam perjuangan kita hampir tahun 63, 31 hari bulan Ogos, iaitu Merdeka Malaysia. Bersemangat sikit tuan-tuan. Kalau lemah begini tak dapat Merdeka Malaysia. Merdeka Malaysia. Merdeka Malaysia. Terima kasih tuan-tuan.
So they come to agreement. They come to Sabah. They came to Sarawak. They came to Thailand. They even have a meeting in Thailand, they even have a meeting in Kuala Lumpur. And all of them agreed. And thus, the paper exists called the Malaysian Agreement came forth. And it was agreed. Now, through my personal observation and research, Lee Kuan Yew and Donald Stephen have a very, very close relationship. They were together. Singapore and North Borneo have a special bond that Donald Stephen trusted Lee Kuan Yew so much because Lee Kuan Yew is not a Malay, he is a Chinese intelligence man and a statesman. So, under this recommendation of Lee Kuan Yew said, it's very good, the plan is good, you will have total control over your state, to run your state, to govern your state. We are not under the British colony anymore. We are not under your control. It's like a slavery type, you know. And that kind of nationalism. This is what I know. Tun Fuad Stephen, the paramount leader, Donald Stephen, cannot even speak Kadazan. I'm sorry to say, maybe he is not a fluent Kadazan speaker, because he is an English educated man. You have to understand, in the time of the British, English language was very strong. Most of the educated men in 1960s, 1950s were English-speaking people. That's the culture of the British came to North Borneo and to all the colony in Asia. So, from what I learned, even Tun Fuad or Donald Stephen cannot even speak Kadazan because he was not born in Penampang. He was born in Kudat. And he was educated in an English school from young until he is old to become a leader. As a matter of fact, when he found Sabah Time newspaper, he wrote everything in English. But the late Datuk Peter Majuntin and the Rev. the Kadazan is the one who wrote Kadazan language. Alright? So, Lee Kuan Yew saw him as a leader, as a statesman. That's why they approached him and proposed. And the Society of Kadazan opened and was receptive to the concept of the Federation of Malaysia. Now you may ask me now, really, Bishop, in a nutshell, without the Society of Kadazan, without the Kadazan people, Sabah would not be part of Malaysia. They were not even part of the independence of the formation of Malaysia. It was the Society of Kadazan. It was Donald Stephen, the president of the Society of Kadazan, who became eventually a political leader, because they said that we cannot mix politics and culture. So, from Society of Kadazan, Donald Stephen formed a party called UNKO, and he also influenced his childhood friend, the late Tun Datu Mustafa, to form a Malay-based politics called party called USNO, United Sabah National Organization. But they are buddies. You have to understand that. And together, they become a strong voice in the political arena, because to form the federation, you need to go into politics, election. So right then, the Kadazan formed a new political party called UNKO. And so let me continue where I pick up about the situation where Lee Kuan Yew became a close associate and friend of the late Tun Fuad Stephen or Donald Stephen. The Kadazan nationalist, I should call him the Kadazan nationalist, because he was the chairman of the Society of Kadazan, who turned out to be later known as the Kadazan Cultural Associations, and then evolved to be the present-day Kadazan Dusun Cultural Associations. Now, this is a Kadazan society, and it was the Society of Kadazan that firstly opened up their door to accept this plan of Tunku Abdul Rahman to form the Federation of Malaysia. This is the main contribution that the society and the Kadazan people of Sabah and North Borneo to the nation building. The nation building And this has been so long that I have to emphasize this back to you. In the nation building of the formation of Malaysia, in the agreement 1963, you know, Donald Stephen did not simply put his signature on that legal documents of Malaysia agreement by himself as a Kadazan nationalist. No, he is representing the people of Kadazan, which is the majority shareholder of North Borneo. He represent as the president of the Society of Kadazan. He represent as the president of the newly formed party called UNCO on behalf of the people of Sabah or North Borneo to sign the agreement. My question to you is, what if Donald Stephen, the Kadazan leader, did not sign it? Sabah will not be part of independence of Malaysia today. He signed, mean it is the Society of Kadazan. It was the people of Kadazan who agreed to the concept of independence, to be part as a partner of this newly formed federation called the Federation of Malaysia. And what was written in the 1963 Malaysia Agreement was a very good term. There are many terms, agreement that was agreed, and they were happy. But now it changes. Sabah is one of that partner, wilayah to form. Without Sabah, without Sarawak, Brunei and Singapore, Malaysia will not be formed. But you know the history. Later on, Brunei pulled out. And was later followed by Singapore. Singapore was already part of Malaysia then.
I mean, for me, it is a moment of anguish because all my life, I had believed in Malaysian merger and the unity of these two territories. You know, as a people connected by geography, economics, and ties of kinship, would you mind if we stop for a while?
But Brunei, before Malaysia come into existence, they pull out earlier. I believe they realized, the Sultan of Brunei realized that, we can deal directly with the British and gain our own independence. And that's what happened. Brunei became independent. Direct deal with the British. But then Singapore and Malaya and Sabah continue with the agenda to form, thus they become independent. Once they gain independence, once the British acknowledge the new federation called Malaysia, then the political scenario changed. The party was formed. In Sarawak, the party was formed. The new party in Sabah was formed. In Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew lead the party. And in Sarawak as well. And in Sabah, the new party, led by Donald Stephen, become the voice of the people of Sabah. They vote, they won, and Tunku Abdul Rahman become the main leader of the political party, which is UMNO. And thus, in the political scenario, these political leaders began to raise up as the leaders, and eventually it became a law it became an agreement, and the British has agreed to it, and they gave independence to these states, Sabah, Sarawak, Singapore, and Malaya, and they become Malaysia. So that is a fact, that is the history. Tun Fuad Stephen, Donald Stephen, is a Kadazan nationalist. Then he became a politician, a Kadazan politician. And so this is the contribution of the people of Sabah. This is the contribution of the people of Kadazan in nation building, that it was them, it was this society, it was this organization which has opened up their heart to the concept as part of the partner. Was it a mistake? I should say no. Because the agreement was so strong, the Malaysian agreement was so strong that it gained advantage over Sarawak, Sabah, and Singapore. But then you know our leaders are weak. Some of our leaders are corrupt leaders. Some of our leaders in the old want to have their own richness and enrich themselves. And they began to change some of the law, and it agreed. As a matter of fact, it was equality, equal partner with Malaya, Singapore, Sarawak, and Sabah. They were equal partner in sharing the wealth of the nations, in sharing the authority and mandate of this new formed country called Malaysia. Sabah will have an autonomy. Sarawak will gain their own autonomy. And after Singapore came out, Malaya will have their own autonomy. But then, because of the political geography and situation, slowly Sabah and Sarawak become part of just a state. And the wealth of the nation was distributed all over. It is supposed to be 3 states, the state of Malaya, the state of Sarawak, and the state of Sabah. 3 equal partners to share the wealth of the nations. It must be divided into 3. All right? That means if it's 100%, each person will share 35% of the wealth of the nations. But then it didn't happen. That is why many voices began to come out. Unsatisfaction, especially the new generation. I want you to put into your history now. Even now, the Kadazan society has become almost the minority in Sabah today. I'm speaking to you in 2025. But in God's observation and in the history, you cannot deny the fact that it was the people of Kadazan who started this nation building, nationalism, to gain independence through Malaysia. And if the Malaysian agreement was honored, I'm telling you, Sabah Sarawak will not be us today. Sabah Sarawak has rich natural mineral, oil, gas, land, kayu balak, they call it. And it is even bigger than some of the states. Sarawak is bigger. And Sabah, Nopo is bigger than even Perak. You know how big it is? And the first governor of Sabah was called the Yang di-Pertuan Negara. We gained an independence. When the British agree, we call it Sabah Day. It was an independence to the Sabah. We call it Sabah Day. Just for a while, a short while, legally saying, then we join Malaysia again to be part of Malaysia because of the offer that Tunku Abdul Rahman and the Malaya has in this agreement. Equal share. 3 partners sharing the wealth of the nation and the government of the nation of Malaysia. Self-governing, Sabah autonomy, Sarawak autonomy, and Malaya autonomy. So that's all I need to say. I just want to bring in my people, because I'm a Kadazan historian and a Kadazan leader, to say to you that give honor and due honor to those who are due honor. Kadazan is a great people. The meaning of Kadazan is, in our term, is Tuhun Tosundu. Tuhun Tongosundu. Because in the innate, our Kadazan poetry, Kadazan was portrayed as somebody being created by God to be a miraculous people, Tosundu, a good-spirited people, people with a good spirit who is accepted by the nature and created by God. This is how the Kadazan leaders, intelligent people like our Huguan Seo, I could say it was not his personality alone. He know that the Kadazan society has a very, very big influence in Sabah at that time. That is why he slowly joined in the society, all the way from Kudat. You can imagine? He moved himself to Api-Api, to Kota Kinabalu, to form a newspaper called Sabah Time. And when he saw the society of Kadazan has a very, very strong impact and influence among other tribes, he joined in there, eventually become the vice president, and it turned out to be the president of Society of Kadazan. And he used this platform to voice his leadership, to become the voice, and his newspaper to become the voice of the people of Sabah. It was the Society of Kadazan. Nation building. So, to the present government, to the present leaders today, give due honor to us. That is all. Give us a share and part of what we have, of what our ancestors have sacrificed their blood and sweat to be where we are today. Sabah is a nation rich with cultures, ethnicity, and there are many, many resources. We can continue to be part of Malaysia, and we are happy with it when all our demands and needs were met. I believe that Malaysia is a rich nation, but to be shared among the people as equal partner. So that's my take on nation buildings, how the Kadazan and the Society of Kadazan, or the Kadazan Cultural Association, has contributed to the nation building and eventually part of that main unit to establish the agreement called Malaysian Agreement of 1963.